Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge your presence, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Maestri, Mr. Ken Punusami. I've seen in the attendees a few colleagues of the MCCI. I'd like to acknowledge their presence, including that of Mrs. Namita Hadawa, Vice President of Mauritius Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mrs. Khadija Wazirali Lakman from Maersk. I'd like to acknowledge their presence and thank you for a very interesting speech. Well, when I was asked to say a few words on today's seminar, I turned to a presentation I was invited to give to the MPA some 10 years ago. I was then chairman of the MEXA. So I went back into my my database and found some of the issues brought forward then. And I can say that where we are today, 10 years later, we are more or less at the same place. The Freeport, has it obtained the objectives set 10 years ago? I am not sure. The issue has not been addressed. Port productivity, have we been able to measure back to where we were 10 years ago? I am not sure. But what I note from the presentation of Mrs. Luckman is that Mauritius port compared to Madagascar port in terms of port productivity seems to have declined. That is, Madagascar certainly has been able to improve in terms of port productivity. Mauritius does not seem to have made as much progress. So those are issues which I've felt through the discussions as they were expressed today. Now, the key to Mauritius competitive advantage lies with the port and its airport. We are talking about the port today, and I think it's very opportune that we have the opportunity to discuss this. Substantial investments have been made in Polwi Harbour, and where are we today compared to these investments? I think it's interesting to measure the performance of these investments and to assess where we have been successful and where we need to make continued progress. I've jotted a few areas in terms of cruise, visits of cruise. Of course, COVID has affected this year's statistics. Hopefully, this will be over soon. But the cruise terminal has been a project for many, many years, and it is still remaining a project, from what I understand from chatting to people who operate in the cruise terminal business. In terms of service, in terms of infrastructure, this remains to be improved. In terms of bulk, I have not seen much progress in terms of bulk, but of course bulk is not transshipped, so it is coming to Mauritius, and bulk will be limited to Mauritius consumption, so to speak. Transshipment has made some progress, but in terms of imports and exports, I understand that delays have increased, and the question is why? Is it something that is related to Mauritius specific, Mauritius port specific, or is it something that has to do with the region, or at a bigger level, the business of major shipping lines? So there are external issues which are affecting the performance of our port, and it is important to take that into perspective to be able to be absolutely outstanding so as to remain competitive and attractive to the rest of the world. In terms of bunker supplies, I think there were high hopes on the business of bunker. However, I understand that certainly the sad event of the Wakasho has had an impact. And today I understand that majors in the business of bunkers are severely affected and are questioning themselves about the feasibility of investing further in infrastructure for developing bunker supplies. So this brings me onto the Wakasho sad event, and that in that perspective, I'd like to say my sympathies to the port authorities. You've lost colleagues. It's been a dramatic event for you and certainly for us in Mauritius. And so my sympathies to you. This event, however, puts us into a perspective that it is not only issues relating to investment in terms of port infrastructure that matters, but the coastal waters. What is our ability to survey our coastal waters? Are the means to do this sufficient? Does this have an impact on the feasibility of investments in the port? I think those are real issues that have come to the fore, and these issues probably need to be addressed if we want to continue in our venture to develop Port Harbour and make Mauritius as a whole region attractive for all the traffic that is traveling near our shores, and how to attract this captive market into business opportunities into Mauritius. So certainly this is, for me, an issue which we have to deal with, to address, and to see what infrastructure is required, what investment is required. Do we have adequate means to engage in effective surveillance of our waters? These issues, I think, have certainly come to the front at the moment. So infrastructure was dealt with, and I'm pleased to see that the island project is still underway. Every year, Mauritius loses 20 to 30 working days due to bad weather. This is seriously affecting regional business as well as larger business, but certainly regional business is severely affected by this situation. This situation has remained for a certain number of years. Just to give you an example, today traffic between Mauritius and the Comores is served by only one shipping line. The schedule is delayed 2 weeks, 3 weeks by the time the schedule is proposed and content is booked. So those are real issues which have been lingering for many, many years. So I think we need to take stock of this situation and to try and identify clearly where do the problems lie. I also understand from operators that cranes are not as efficient as they should be, or as they were targeted to be. So certainly there are issues there. There's issues about bad weather. I understand there are issues about maintenance, and I think Mrs. Uziali did mention that yard efficiency needs to be improved. So I think this is work to be done. In terms of container stacking, I understand also that there are issues there in terms of space availability, in terms of equipment. So I think in terms of infrastructure is one issue, but certainly port operation is certainly an issue. I've asked people to, well, my colleagues from MCCI to consult some statistics before I could address you today. And the World Bank Group analysis has identified that port efficiency in Mauritius is at around 50%, which is low, which is about the average for the region. But certainly we should aim to be better than the region if we want to remain attractive and we want to be outstanding. Another issue which has been brought to my attention is that of regulations. Today, as you know, the Port Authority acts as the landlord, but is also the regulator of port activities. Is that conducive to investment and growth? I think these issues, again, have been addressed in the past, again, by the World Bank Group. And I think these issues, again, need to be addressed and to see if we want to optimize revenue, to optimize attractivity. Maybe this issue needs to be addressed. This leads me to the next topic, which is that of financing the port development. Today, port development has been financed exclusively by the government of Mauritius through MPA or other vehicles. But do we have a scope for private entrepreneurs investing, be it in infrastructure, be it in port operation? We have some, but is it sufficient? Can we do more? Can we attract more? I think those issues are real issues which need to be addressed, particularly in the time of COVID, where we know that all businesses have been affected, finances of the government have been affected. Are there ways and means of creating, enlarging the economic space by attracting other players investing into our economy? It has worked very successfully in certain industries. Certainly, this is an issue to consider when we talk about investing massive investments in port infrastructure, be it infrastructure, be it yard equipment, being all these issues. I think these require a substantial amount of funds, and clearly we should try and consider to be attractive to the rest of the world. It has also been brought to my attention that the National Development Plan has been prepared in 2003 and probably needs to be reviewed to be able to address some of these issues. I'd like now to turn to the regional attractivity. So we've talked about Mauritius, about the port, about yard management, but of course all of this operates in a global regional area with regional attractivity. And this is to me also a concern because we are dependent, the success of Mauritius port is also dependent of success of other ports of the region and economic activity in the region. So we need to probably address at a global level the capacity of other ports to complement each other. Today, Mauritius port is serviced by fewer lines than it was some years ago. Today we have about 3 majors operating out of Mauritius. Previously there were more shipping lines operating out of Mauritius. We need to address, is that better? Is that worse? Do we serve all the ports of the region more effectively today than we did some 10 years ago? I don't think so. There are less calls onto the smaller ports of the region, which we can call the feeder ports. So we need to understand why is that? Are they being served from other hubs? These issues need to seriously be addressed and be measured. Another issue which will reinforce my point of view of Mauritius port being outstanding is the movement of sustainability, which is today a major issue in the world. Some are talking of imposing green taxes or carbon taxes. And of course, Mauritius being isolated, transport to and from Mauritius is heavy in terms of economic impact. So if a green tax is imposed, we could be seriously affected. Hence, the reason to be significantly more efficient and significantly more attractive to be able to counter effect some of these issues which could become real issues for us. So I've tried to put a few ideas on paper, and just to bring a concluding remark to my expose is basically the port attractivity. How do we compare today compared to 20 years, 10 years ago? We certainly have lots of projects going forward, but how do we compare? I think it's important to take stock, to identify what has worked and what needs improvement. How do we compare to emerging ports and to emerging regions? Ports is one issue, but regions, if other regions become more attractive to shipping lines, they are likely to put more emphasis on developing other regions than our region. So we need to engage with our partners and to remain attractive to major players. We need to I think we need to measure with precise information, mutually agreed performance criteria in terms of port efficiency and in terms of return on investment. We've been talking about many issues for many years, and it seems that we are still more or less at the same place. We need to identify what are the stumbling blocks and what enablers will enable us to unleash greater economic activity out of Mauritius port. Mauritius port remains crucial for the economic success of Mauritius, and I'd like to commend those who are working in the port and to be able to help them to measure precisely the issues they face, to understand precisely in terms of shipping lines, what are the issues they face and how can we be more attractive going forward. Thank you.